Good morning, everybody. We're in Lakeland, Florida today at the RP Funding Center. I think it used to be the Lakeland Civic Center. We're here today for a Bigfoot convention. That's right, the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference is taking place in Lakeland, Florida. This is their second annual event. I think they had their last event about 6 months ago. This cap popped up as a suggested event for me through social listings, and I figured I needed to be here today. There's a lot of things that we believe in and we talk about on the channel, like ghosts, aliens, UFOs. I'd even go as far as the Loch Ness Monster and Nessie, and even growing up in New York and having New Jersey as a sister state, the Chupacabra was a huge thing all the time about rumors. But Bigfoot, I'm not really sure. It's the Bigfoot check-in. Does that mean that it's actually the check-in for Bigfoot, like Sasquatches? Or to check in for the conference about Bigfoot? We've made it inside. Of course, Bigfoot in the South, more commonly known as the skunk ape. The skunk ape variety have a smell to them, apparently, like a skunk. Here's the schedule for the day. And this is the layout. There is official Bigfoot merchandise here. The official event t-shirts. Vendors as far as the Bigfoot can see. Some casts of Bigfoot.
I made quite a big change in went in a different direction with things.
And we cannot escape the Fiji mermaid. Bigfoot the game. Bigfoot the coloring book. All the Squatch you can handle.
And it looks good with the black.
Also, Sasquatch. It's a fan of Brandon. Bigfoot won the Stanley Cup with the Lightning. It all makes sense now. All kinds of Bigfoot books. The Garden State Variety Sasquatch. We have to pick up the Bigfoot Observer's Field Manual. Visits from the Forest People? How to cook a Bigfoot. Ironically playing Wanted Dead or Alive with Bigfoots. Squatchin' 101. They do have like a celebrity row of like investigators that are famous for Bigfoot. Bigfoot hot sauce. Bigfoot neck gaiters. Sasquatch likes the scorpions, but not the actual scorpions. It's a covered version. Sasquatch can't afford the rights to the real scorpions. And we're starting to get underway. Get your conference guide.
Brave enough to go into the woods at night, stand before a wall of darkness, and beg for the wall of darkness to call back to you. So, this is for all of you brave son of a guns.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Campfire Stories here at the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference 2022. Yes!
now you are surrounded by a loving community of fellow Squatch thinkers, and this is the place to find your tribe, okay? One of the things I'm most excited about today is we have a lot of local groups that are here, and these are people that are out all the time, okay? And there are all different types of squatching. You know, you do not have to go 40 miles out to the woods remote, dropped in by helicopter. You can go day squatching. You can go early evening squatching. Really, it's kind of like fishing. You got to make a whole bunch of casts to kind of get an experience. How many of you in here have had a Class A, B, or C sighting? Like literally, you have seen one, you have heard one, maybe you smelt one. Okay, so we've got at least enough. Now, leave your hands up just for 1 second. These are the people you go talk to. Okay. Because in all my experience, here's the deal, thank you. You don't have to keep them up unless you got good deodorant on. The more people that you meet, because people, we are skeptical. Some people exaggerate, some people lie, some people do these things. But pick the brains of the people in here that have had experiences. Watch their eyes, watch the hair in their arms possibly stand up. Like, watch how powerful the story is to them. They follow it, they find tracks, which, as we all know, is solid proof. You have the same size tracks across the entire country. You know what that does? That denotes a subspecies. Or a bunch of eccentric millionaires running around going, we're going to get them with these tracks, right? And then they found hair. They found hair. Skunk Ape Lives is a documentary, and there's probably some other one you guys can all recommend to each other. Watch it if you want an education. And anytime anybody out there tells you they're not real, that's bogus, when you hear that, just because that's all I've ever heard really, they just don't have an education. They just haven't taken the time to do a dive into the subject.
So I've been seriously researching the subject of Bigfoot and skunk apes in Florida now for almost 3 years. And I used to go out with friends to the Ocala National Forest to look around, and we would find some strange things. But the majority of the time, I went out by myself. I would go out to the Green Swamp, to Mayaca, to Ocala, to Upper Hillsborough, and I was finding strange things out there, so I was taking pictures of them. And I decided I wanted to start sharing those photos with people, or other researchers. So what I did was, I went on Facebook, and I was looking around trying to find a research group that specialized in Florida research. Florida also has 17 million acres of forests. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. I didn't know that. So almost half the state is covered in forests. So there's plenty of places for Bigfoots and skunk apes to live, to thrive. They have a year-round food supply available to them because of our weather. So we definitely do have them here.
We're taking measurements, we're doing a lot of stuff as much as we can, collecting hairs forensically, a lot of stuff like that. And this stuff is out there. Once you get out there and start looking around, you start finding things, you start hearing stuff. And we find a lot of stuff like that, just being out there. Sometimes we go out far out off trail, and then sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're close to roads or highways. These things are everywhere. But you'll find certain areas where they hang out. They'll be close around, and you can keep going back to those same areas and finding evidence of them there.
We were there one night. We had all our equipment set up, night vision, thermal cameras, just sweeping back and forth, watching, because there's a creek that runs along there, and there's been sightings in that area. So it was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock. I was sweeping with my thermal when I see a figure walking at me, at us. And at first I thought it was just a child. It was about 4 foot tall. And then following right, maybe 10 feet behind it's another one, a second figure. This one's about 3 foot tall. And they approached us about 70 yards away. And they just got on the swings and started swinging, going down the slide, just playing like two kids. But we couldn't figure out why, because it's dark. Couldn't see the person 3 feet from you. But they had no source of light. There's no cell phones, no flashlights. It's like, that's odd. What's going on here? But what kind of clued us in is something's odd here is they didn't look like they had clothing on, it looked like hair. And now we're looking through thermal, so we couldn't see that well. But I noticed when the taller child kicked off the swing, one kick, he's all the way up that high. And usually it takes you a little while, but no, he's up swinging up here and he comes back down, and we watched him for a good 3-4 minutes. When he just suddenly stopped, we heard some like foreign, I would say like a foreign language combination of Klingon. And I was like, what is coming out of them? And they just suddenly walked back and turned and went right into the deepest part of the woods. And we figured it out later, well, those had to be juveniles. So their kids must be just like our kids. They want to go and play on the swing sets.
It's been broken. Only 4 weeks later, we don't know how this thing got broken because we could not put our hands on either side of that branch to snap it. I don't know how it got broken without something pulling it out of that tight spot. Don't know. And then the branch that was underneath, it was off to the side about 5 feet. And it wasn't like it was standing like this and it fell that way. It was standing like this and it was put over about 5 feet.
Here in mid-Florida, Green Swamp area, camping, tomorrow makes 5 years ago, January 23rd, 2017. We were about 5 or 6 of us in the campground, and it was a very cold night. And 2:25 a.m., 37 degrees outside. I'm just sound asleep. We can see the tent there. It's a small tent. And all of a sudden, I'm getting picked up by a giant hand. Now he's holding me up. I'm sitting there in the dark, wondering how am I going to get out of this? And I just shaken and scared to death. And then, I'm in a sitting position in the dark, terrified. And it seemed like a long time. It was probably only about 5 seconds. And then what happened was, I did something most people don't do. I slept in my tent with a sound machine. And it sounded like water, rain, waterfall. So I think it just was curious. What in the world is this? I've never heard that before. What kind of noise is this? Now he's got me by my head. And then you just realize, okay, this isn't what I thought it was. It's a person or something. So he just gently let me back down. I went along with it. He set me back down. I sat back up instantly, and I'm sitting in the dark, shaking, scared to death. Then he's going to pick up the whole tent and just walk off with Bigfoot Dave down the trail. So I'm sitting there shaking, and then I hear sounds out just outside the tent, and I realize that he's going through our trash. He's going in the bag, pulling out cans, bottles, paper. So that made me feel a little better. It's probably out there for a good 10 minutes, just rummaging through everything. I remember he went through one of the campers' gas grill. We heard this loud bang, and we had cooked all our food on that grill that evening. So he was looking in there, and I thought he was going to get a big steak, I guess. But there's nothing there, so I think he just slammed it in frustration. So, and then we noticed that morning when I got back up, there was a couple people out picking up the trash. So I helped pick them up, and I started finding these little square pieces of paper, about that big. And I followed them, 8 or 9 of them down the trail, picking them all up. When I brought them back, threw them back in the garbage can, one of the campers hollered out, "My burgers are gone." So apparently it doesn't have separators from the hamburgers. So he was just eating raw hamburger walking down the trail.
Leaving a trail of papers in his path.
Yeah. And
Next panel up is the Skunk Ape Roundtable.
So Connor, as high energy as possible, is speaking to everyone, but especially to the next generation of squatchers. You guys in here, I see you down there, all zipped up. How do they get into it? Why is it accessible to them? And and how do they get rocking and find their zone like you?
Now more than ever, it's being talked about on different platforms, different radio shows, even animated movies are bringing it to the forefront. But you guys have to keep your wide lens, because a lot of people get stuck in their little tunnels, and like everybody has said, these creatures, they surprise us at pretty much every turn. So we will never truly figure them out, and once we start boxing them in, we're going to miss important information. I love talking about how we are particle form 99% of the time, but in our true moments of being, we can become waveform. So I think those, creatures in the woods, the elementals, the fairies, and all the other deities out there, they're not as poisoned as us with Wi-Fi, fluoride in our water, and just petty, responsibilities that we have to slow down our natural instinct for. So I say, experiences come in many different ways. Like, write down your dreams in the morning. Keep your eyes open when you're driving. But don't be scared to say you believe in Bigfoot. Luckily, I'm a long-haired hippie guy, so people approach me with pretty open arms. And I've gotten some crazy stories. And just drawing correlations with Florida, Ohio, the Yowie over in Australia, the orang pendek in Indonesia. There's tons of similar things that they all have their different variants, and it's awesome to just dive into it. Just here in Florida, we have 3-toed skunk apes, we have the 4-toed skunk apes, we have maybe the Tennessee Titans that come down when it gets too cold, and we have so many caves over in the Panhandle where Stacy and I are from. Go down into the aquifer, and if you guys saw, Godzilla this year, they talk about the dome, they talk about Middle Earth, they talk about aquifers. So it's starting to hit the forefront. So I'm just going to keep pushing it forward. But this is my church.
You need everything. You need all the ingredients to make the pie, and you have to listen to everybody. So if you're closed-minded, if you've already got it in your head that it's a flesh and blood creature, you're never going to find nothing. You're going to find what you want to, but you won't prove it. I'm at the point now, because there's also UFO encounters with these, with some of the Bigfoot encounters. I think when we end up finding proof of this, it's going to be in the witness itself, because most people that have seen a skunk ape or Bigfoot have also had an encounter with a ghost. They've also seen strange lights, UFOs, what have you. And I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, it's going to be those people. What is it with those people that allow them to see these things?
And John Green were also...
Panel's pretty awesome, I have to be honest.
It's
pretty
high level...
good-sized crowd.
I guess tractors.
The soundtrack in the vendor area and eating area, awesome. Little Van Halen, little Stella, little Miller Lite House. Is that the elusive Bigfoot?
You found him.
We found him.
It's Bigfoot in the wild. Multiple feet. They're multiplying now. We've got 1, 2, 3, 3 Bigfoots. By God. Back after the break for a little bit more on the panels.
This sort of was a teaser. Yeah, see, normally I can see the presentation here. Now I can see it, so I know what I'm talking about. So the concept here is Bigfoot and Waterways. What is the connection to that? There's a line, they say, one of the first things we learned is that they always travel the creeks. Famous film. Has anybody ever seen the Patterson-Gimlin film? I hope you've all seen that. The whole world knows what this is now, but think about it. Where was Patty walking when Roger and Bob saw her that day in 1967? Sandbar near Bluff Creek. Well, it makes a lot of sense, because water is a place where there's sustenance, obviously water itself, into these waterways. And I wrote a book, Momo, Strange Case of the Missouri Monster, which I'm sure you've all read as well. But that was right there on the Mississippi River. And this is in Missouri, and you're not, I didn't originally connect that with the Mississippi River, but when I went up there to research this, literally, there were sightings that were recorded in the newspapers, and I went to the spots where those, and literally, I'm here, and the Mississippi River was right there. The legend of Boggy Creek is obviously a seminal case that put the southern Sasquatch on the map, because prior to that, everybody knew about the Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest, Patterson-Gimlin research, and all the stories coming out of there, Native American stories, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. That terminology, that term came from a California newspaper in the late 50s. But now, when Legend of Boggy Creek was made, that was made because there were sightings in this little town of Fouke, Arkansas, in the southwest corner, just above Texas, where I'm from. It's only about 3 hours from where I live. But there were sightings of a Sasquatch-like creature seen in this area. The Sulphur River has its origin over in Texas. So in one of my books where I started researching that area more in depth and sort of zoom out on it, I started looking for any sightings along these waterways. That's a great place to find tracks. And a great place that I would suggest, if you're a researcher and you want to find a track, obviously you have to go to places where tracks can be made.
All right, Bigfoot convention, we're getting out of here. Check out this guy out. Mary's saying he's got like teeth behind his teeth, or which way my hand's going, he's chewing gum. So, what did you think?
Very interesting.
A lot of stories. I don't know if my skepticism is swayed any more than it was going in. There's not a lot of physical evidence that we were presented today.
No.
But it was a fun event.
It was a good get-together, that's what it was.
It is, I want to believe. But I will say, despite looking at all of the stuff that we've included in this video, it might be easy to jump to the conclusion that something doesn't exist. But I will say something that some folks might get upset about. But the reality is, there's no more proof here with this than there is when we are expected to believe things like a book that's more than 2,000 years old that has stories about religion. There's not any more physical proof that we have in that case as well, but we're quick to dismiss things, I think, at times when it's easy to do so. So that's not to say that I either believe everything at face value or don't believe things at face value. We are able to believe what we want to believe, subjectively or objectively. But the cases presented here, some really good stories, at least. Yeah. Same way that we hear ghost stories or things, about other things that can't be explained. But in any event, it was fun. This was their second event. We had a couple of folks that said hello to us that watch the channel for other things like the bucks and things like that. So thank you very much, everybody, for saying hello while we were out here. And apparently from last year to this year, this has grown like more than twofold for what the size was. So and maybe next year it'll be even bigger, once they get some more promotion. We didn't know that this existed until this popped up as a social media like sponsored ad. So anyway, it was fun. Yeah. And now we carry on. So thanks a lot for coming along. Thank you very much for all of your likes, comments, and subscriptions. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Have a great night. We'll see you guys.